All right. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. So here I'm going to start with just kind of going over the wiring before my heater over in the corner over there turns back on. So you can at least hear me a little bit better. Sorry if it echoes, sorry if you hear outside noise. There's no insulation in the barn right now. But, however, what you see laying on the floor over there, and there, is pretty much all the wiring harnesses I took out of the truck. Now, not all the wiring harnesses are out. See, some of them still in here. A lot of these connectors are brittle, like this one that freaking just broke off more. That's what we make zip ties for. A lot of these connectors are brittle. There will be a point in time where I remove every ounce of wiring and slim it down and make my own harness. But that is not going to happen today because most of the things I'm going to be reusing is stock. I'm just slightly modifying them. So this is what we're going to go over today. On the ground here, you have the engine harness and then the power harness. Engine harness is just got some connectors that were repaired already. That's going back on the engine as is, how is. There's nothing I'm going to change to that one. However, this one. So down here, here's your positive battery cable, negative battery cable. This goes to the power distribution box. This is, I think, for another connector underneath the power distribution box. AC clutch, AC pressure switch, alternator, ground, starter, power and signal. So this one I'm going to change, and I'm thinking I'm going to change it this way. Because I'm moving the battery from under the hood to the back, I'm putting a disconnect switch in. A massive disconnect switch that you can either hook it on the ground side or positive side. You could either do it either way, doesn't matter. It's a pretty beefy disconnect switch for industrial use. I'm going to hook that up near the battery where this terminal would go. I'm going to cut the wires off and put an eyelet on, and that would be this right here. This is a battery disconnect switch. I'm going to kind of cut this down a little bit and straight up just bolt it to the battery tray here. This will be on, off. And it's just going to be a main power wire from the back, one large main power wire from the back, come all the way up to the front, connect to this, and then from this, distribute it to the power distribution box and to the starter. There is two power cables here on the stock harness. Some people might be like, you need to have two cables going to that. Not exactly. Is it better to? Yes, but I'm doing this very cheaply. And by cheaply, I mean cost effective. So I can get battery cables for semi-trucks quite easily and not that expensive. One cable from a semi-truck, and those cables are massive. Maybe not that big, but you kind of get the point. The cables from a semi-truck for what they have to start with, there's always usually two for the starter on a semi-truck. I'm only going to use one. I don't think I will have a problem using one large, very large battery cable from the back to the front on that disconnect switch going to here. It will basically be my main power switch. I'm going to cut this off, put an eyelet on because it's going to be right next to the battery, and put it back together. However, on the negative side, I'm going to be cheap. And some people might not agree with me, but I'm pretty sure I can get this to work. This ground, instead of going right to the battery terminal, I'm going to cut this, put an eyelet on it, and go right to the frame rail up here somewhere. So, ideally, I'm going to probably drill a hole, tap it, or bolt it, depending on where I can drill one or where I can connect it to. The idea is to bolt the main ground that goes from the starter on that power harness there, from the starter to the frame rail. And then the other one that went from the core support body to the battery cable, to the battery post, is also going to go to the frame rail here. There's also other ground cables on this truck, like kind of see one hanging down over there. I got to reconnect that to the frame. There's multiple different grounds on the body because it's got this isolator bushing here, which eventually that will be gone. But for the time being, for cost effectiveness, and I don't think it would be that much of a problem, I'm going to use the frame rail as my battery ground. And when I come back here, this is kind of where my battery is going to be. I'm going to take the negative terminal. Either I'm going to have two piece of angle iron going up and down here to hold the battery tray in, and I'll have it bolted to that, or I'm just going to have the battery cable come to here to where it's not boxed anymore. One of these holes, drill it out, and then bolt a negative battery terminal there. So the idea is to use the frame as my negative battery cable. I don't think that's going to be a problem. Technically, everywhere on the vehicle should be a ground. And if I have a big enough cable going from the battery terminal to the frame, and then the rest of the frame is my battery cable, to that point, make sure I have good clean grounds, but I'm going to make the frame basically a giant battery cable. I don't know how people are going to feel about that, or other people feel about that. Would you want to have battery cables going all the way back? In an ideal world, probably yes. But I don't live in an ideal world, and I don't think it would be that much of an issue to use the frame as my ground. So, engine's got to get grounded to the frame. Chassis or body is going to get grounded to the frame, and then the frame is going to get one good power wire or ground wire from the frame to the battery terminal. Everything's going to ground through the frame, which will be the cheapest option. So technically, I would only have to buy one really long battery cable and one really short one. The idea is to reuse this one to the most as possible. This right here is kind of I made a quick relay harness for the electric fan that's on there. That's going to get reworked. That will get changed and set up to be differently. On this harness here, you got the main power wire for the starter, the signal, and the ground there. That's all staying. The alternator actually goes from here up to the power distribution box. So one of these leads is the power distribution power from the battery, and then one of these are from the alternator. And there's a bus fuse in between there. I forget which one's which. I think I don't remember. One of these is the main power, one of these is from the alternator. That's not changing. So how I'm just going to change this is lap this off, put a connector on it to use that battery switch that's up in there. Bolt that down. Just put the ground, move it from the battery where it normally would go, and just put another eyelet on it and attach it to the frame. I don't think that will be a problem. If it does become a problem, I will change it accordingly. But for cost-effective reasons, I don't think it will be necessary. The way I'm going to go about it, I think we'll be fine as long as I have a big enough battery cable from the back of the truck to the front in order to carry the amps it needs. This starter on this truck is not that high amperage, and I don't really have anything inside the truck that is high enough amperage to really be a problem. It's going to be overkill using a semi-truck battery cable, but it'll work in the end. So on the floor here is the whole rear chassis harness. So from basically this point right at the transfer case, somewhere around here, I'll go under there in a moment, this is your bulkhead connector for the whole rear wiring of this truck. This, I believe, is an inertia sensor for the ABS. This eventually will get deleted. I don't think this is anything else other than like an inertia sensor for the ABS. The ABS is not going to work anyway because being a 9-inch, there's no rear wheel speed sensor. So the ABS is not going to work. I'm going to have the computer power up so it runs the speedometer, even though it's going to be, I think, off. Because there is 513 gears in this front and rear diff. There's 513 gears in this, and it's on 35s. I would have to look at the chart. I don't remember. It might be off. We'll have to see. But that's for later down the road. This eventually will get deleted, but I'm just going to bolt it back up there. Reuse most of this harness. So right here, this is the fuel pump slash level sender slash pressure tank sender connector. This is going to get extended. Now, I bought a connector to just plug into this. It's a pigtail end. That is the male end of this connector. I can't remember. This connector and the connector back there for the lights are actually the same. Just this is the female, that's the male, or vice versa, I don't remember. But I got one of each, and what I'm going to do is just plug into this. Look at which wire colors are what, or slowly use the tank that's over there to take the wires off that and just extend these to the back, to the fuel tank up there. I will get a different level sender. That's not the stock level sender, but it will have the same ohm reading, so the factory gauge should work. The fuel pump is actually going to get changed a little bit. The wires for the bigger fuel pump are not going to be adequate enough in the stock harness. So the idea of that is, since the battery is going to be back here, there will be another relay back here with bigger wires going directly to the battery. And basically, this connector, instead of powering a fuel pump, is just going to power a relay, so the amps won't be there to burn up this harness or have issues with. I'm going to have a fused relay back here that's going to be higher, and I'm just going to have the relay click on, click off a higher amperage fuel pump in the tank there. I'm actually going to probably try and run one of those fuel pumps that I could put 2 in-tank fuel pumps on there, one for redundant. I'm only going to run one, but I'm going to have a redundant one in there, or when I get a bigger power train in here, I could just run both of them at the same time. But that's for future proof. So this is just going to get extended eventually. Moving on down the line, this is just going to get tied up onto the harness. I don't know if I'll ever do anything more with this, or it'll probably get deleted. I'm just going to zip tie it up to the harness like so, and then be done with it. This was for the rear ABS sensor, but that is long gone, not going to be used. Thank you, ma'am. There's no reason for me to have that. So this is just going to get kind of zip tied to the harness and then just left there. It's meant for the ABS. The ABS is not going to use that. Eventually, the ABS will be gone in this truck. But for all intents and purposes, and for just doing this as fast as possible, it's just going to get zip tied up out of the way. Along with this, so this is the, I think, the purge solenoid. This green, if I remember correctly, this is the purge solenoid for the charcoal canister. I am probably not putting the charcoal canister back on this truck. It is just going to get in the way for added things in the future. This is a toy. I'm not going to wear it. I'm just going to vent the tank with a rollover valve to the atmosphere. Bite me over it if you don't like that, but I don't. At this point, this truck's probably not going to see more than maybe 3,000 miles a year, maybe even less. It's a toy. So realistically, putting the charcoal canister back on, I'm not doing it. The charcoal canister, is not crucial for the engine operation, rather than the pressure tank, the tank pressure sensor that connects to this, I believe is one of those sensors I'm going to have to keep, sheerly because the way it is wired per wiring diagram, this sensor that goes on the tank, which, let me go over and show you the tank. So this is the old tank I'm not using now. I've got another one of these that's longer that works with that other tank, but on here, which I was going to use this way, on here you see the little plug end, 4 wires that go in the tank, 2 wires are for the level sender, 2 wires are for the fuel pump, and you have 3 wires that run this fuel tank pressure sensor. The way this is wired, and the way Ford wired this thing, is that this pressure sensor, for some reason, take care of the 5 volt reference for the rest of the sensors. So it comes from the PCM into here. I think 12 volts come into here, and then downgrades at 12 volts to 5 volts and sends it back all the way up through the rest of the truck, back up through the PCM, and then all the 3 volt sensors get that 5 volt reference. That is the only one that I think I would need to deal with or keep. I'm pretty sure that's the only one I'm going to need to keep. So back down here, this is for charcoal canister. We're not going to reuse this. This again will probably be just zip tied up on the harness, out of the way. Not going to deal with it. All right, here's the 2 license plate lights. One of these I'm going to cut off and put a 2-pin connector in. One's power and one's ground for the running lights because it's a license plate light. I have a license plate light on the way to use. It's going to be an LED one that just kind of goes over. I'm not going to run 2 of these. The other thing I am going to do with the other one is I'm going to put an eyelet on the ground and ground the back panel, because some of the lights down there are single wire and they ground through that panel. So to make a good ground, I'm going to put one of these as cut it off. The powered one is just going to get capped off. The ground is just going to get bolted to the eyelet to a bolt. And then here's the other end of that one connector, kind of like over there. This is your connector for your lights. This has already got another connector on the way to get the reverse lights working. And then here's just this wire here is something you can buy from Reese. I'll put the part number on the screen, but this comes with a connector to have one of these 4-prong trailer light wires. I'm going to use this for this truck just in case I tow something small. But this is your main light harness. This is for trailer light harness. This one's different than this one because I think 93 to 98 trucks run a dedicated turn signal light back here, whereas from 99 and newer, they don't. So the wiring is slightly different in this truck compared to the newer ones. I go from there to this. This is something else Reese makes. This is a tee off, sort of like if you didn't have that gray plug for trailer lights, you would get this. And this kind of has diodes in it, so the turn signals will also be the brake lights. It does that for you. The box that this connected to, that would be after this T. that controls the light system, I cut off because I just wanted to use this as my T. So all this is all these lights is running lights, brake lights, and turn signals. These here are going to be my reverse lights, and that's where that pigtail end I bought, that's on its way. This plugs into the harness down there. That plugs into this, tees off, and then this plug out is just going to take care of the reverse lights. Eventually, when bedsides get put on, I'll extend those wires out of that T to go to actual tail lights on the sides. But that would be for later down the road. So, to keep all the wiring harnesses on the truck kind of like rigidly, or not rigidly, just securely well, I have assortment of stuff. These little clips here that you can use for zip ties are things I can get for work from relatively cheap. You can just bolt them on. You can weld them on or bolt them on. There's some old ones here. These I got from Rough Stuff. These are meant to be welded on. These are meant to be bolted on. I don't know if I will use these or not. I got these because I'm not totally sure. I'm probably going to need more of these because I plan on welding these on to handle most of the fuel lines and wiring. Just to make it simple, and then just use zip ties to hold them on there. So I might be ordering more of these, and these are just from Rough Stuff. This was like total $30, I think. I don't remember. This was like $30, so not that much. I might need to order more of these, but that's not that much. These I can get for relatively cheap at work, like stupid cheap. Here we got is what's known as a Group 31 battery tray. So a Group 31 battery is a semi-truck battery. It's generally a standard size battery. That's 1,000 cold cranking amps, which for this truck is overkill, but I can get batteries from work for relatively cheap. And I plan on just like putting parts, consumable parts on this that are relatively available at different parts stores to make this thing cheap to maintain. So I'm not having an Optima. I'm not doing that. I'm not putting any Dakota lithium battery in there. I'm just, if the parts store doesn't carry it, if like O'Reilly's and Vance and like even AutoZone, if they don't relatively carry stuff kind of like this, I don't want it. I legitimately don't want it because I want to be able to relatively go to any parts store and buy the stuff if I need it in a pinch. I don't have to order it and then wait for it. So this is a Group 31 battery tray. Came from Winter Fab. For the price of this battery tray, not bad for $70. I just wish they actually came with the bolts. I had to get these myself. I feel like they should have at least given you the bolts. The mounting bolt here, holes here to mount it up. That's fine not giving you bolts because I plan on welding this. But this, they just zip tie it there. They don't even give you bolts to bolt this down. So I feel like that's a little lackluster, but for $70 it isn't bad. Even if they sold it at $75, that wouldn't be bad. Just give me the bolts. It's not that hard. That's the only gripe I have about this. But other than that, fits the battery. I'll probably get a rubber, what do you call it, strip to put on here to snugly hold the battery down. These two I got thinking I would use, but I'm not totally sure. These were $8 for two of them, I think it was. So this battery tray and these two gussets from Winter Fab was, with shipping, was roughly around $100. So those are the parts so far. I'm going to start from the back here and work my way forward. I want to try and finalize everything for the wiring. Eventually, The fuel lines, that's an entire different video. Eventually I'm going to have them run on the top part of the cage and then back down. But that's a wholly different thing. The objective for this kind of video is more of running all the wiring back in and finalizing it to the chassis and then wiring everything in so then it's turnkey, ready to go. So putting the battery in, kick the charcoal canister out of my way. Come over here, kind of turn on this light, it's gonna warm up a little bit. So what Lancaster did was they boxed in the whole frame from the notched cut back. With the cage here, the rest of the frame is not really needed to be boxed. It's just not. With the welded bed cage here, this creates so much rigidity back here that boxing that in is quite pointless. Besides, you have this massive cross member, stock cross member that's welded now, not just riveted onto the frame. Yeah, there's no need to. So you might see some bare metal there. So like the frame had this lip. You can kind of see where I cut off. I'll get a picture kind of showing it in there. So there's a lip there. My whole plan with getting this battery tray in there, try to do this with one hand reaching over. So it's going to kind of sit, this battery tray, kind of sit like that. I hope, my only hope is you can kind of see how close that bar is. I don't think it would get in the way with the battery, but I have to double check. But the idea would be to, somewhere right here, tack weld this battery tray on, and then 2 pieces of angle iron from the frame, rail, all the way up to the tube, and same on the other side. It's going to look very, very, very crude because I'm putting angle iron instead of like tubing it or something like that. But angle iron should just do just fine. It's going to look crudely, or it's going to look rough. I'm not a professional welder at all, but it will stick enough for hopefully not be an issue. So it'll probably get tacked in here, and then I'm probably going to get a jack stand and stand up this other end of the battery tray, get a battery in there and see how well it fits and where I got to have it at. Get a leveling, get it leveled, and then tack it in, and then I'll get some angle iron pieces. But that's where I'm generally going to have the battery, right there. And it's going to be really close to the fuel tank to put a better fuel pump relay somewhere. I'm not totally sure where. That'll be later. But this will be good enough for where I'm going to go with it. All right, so roughly about 3 to 5 hours later, this is my battery tray. Wonderfully booger welded in there. As you can see, that is a 1000 cold cranking amp battery. That's 1 out of 4 that you would find in a semi-truck. I'm going to use that. It is heavy. It's kind of awkward to get in there, but it's the battery I want. They have 3/8 studs instead of like the clamp on kind. I'd rather go that direction. So, be the judge of my welds. They are, they stick, but I'm winning no prizes with them. I mean, it kind of looks like it's been thrown together. It kind of has. It works. The battery tray warped a little bit. I'm going to get some rubber strips to put underneath the battery and on this, so when I clamp the battery down, it's fine. Other than that, it's completely welded in there. There's 2 holes that are right here in here on the tray. I'm going to drill them through and just put 3/8 bolts. Might use it for my ground cable, or I might just bring the ground probably right here on one of these holes, drill it out, put the ground in that. That's pretty much it. Most of this was just me talking about the wiring. This was a solid, like 3-4 hours. I want to say 4. I'm going to probably say 4 hours of just cutting, welding, fitting in there. Also removed the fuel tank. That's sitting down over there. Pretty much the next one is just, I'm going to be installing the rear harness and then welding all my tie downs on and deal with this mess back here. But here's where it sits right now. Battery tray's installed. I have to get some spray paint and spray over it. Gotta clean it off. Get some acetone or rubbing alcohol, kind of clean it up a little bit, and then I'll just spray it down. Oh, yeah, that's the battery. I'm just gonna leave it there for now. So, there we go. That'll get installed next time. I found this ground cable, probably use that. Cut the ends off the battery cable spots that I gotta get eyelets for this, eyelet for that. Yeah, that's pretty much it. There's not much more to really say. I did not really record anything of me putting that together. To me, that's kind of boring, but it's also boring to me talking. It's very kind of crudely done. I'm winning no awards for it, but it's all welded on there. If it sticks, it ships. So, yeah, battery tray warped a little bit. Oh well. Some rubber strips will help that out a lot, especially underneath it and on the bar. Just kind of sandwich it a little bit. I'm probably going to also get rubber strips for the fuel tank to sit on. But that's about it. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't want to drag this on too much. I know I talked a lot on the first half of this. Maybe a little less talking, but there's so much information that you kind of need to know about how I'm doing this. So take it with a grain of salt. You can get bored of it, click off somewhere else, or you can listen to me yammer. But anyway, that's done. Battery's done. I'll do another video of just installing wiring harness and dealing with that crap back there. That would probably be the next one, and probably the wiring for the front. So, thanks for watching.